It's The Drive with Terry Moore on CFAX 1070.
If you're as big a fan as the things that go down in the Antarctic as I am, you will certainly enjoy this next half hour because we have in our studio with us a man who has done a great deal of work in that area and is also one of the top mountaineers in the world. Conrad Anker is joining us. He has done an expedition into Antarctica, and he was also involved in the production of Shackleton's Antarctic Adventure. And if you've seen any of that on television or seen any of the movies on it over the years, you know that that time for Shackleton and his crew was absolute hell on wheels. How they ever survived that, a lot of people wonder how could a human being even go through what they went through in Antarctica and survive. As a matter of fact, when he went back to Elephant Island and got his crew out of there, everybody survived, and they came back home. But let me introduce Conrad Anker. He's in town right now because he is here to talk about this wonderful film that's playing at the IMAX Theater. It's good to see you.
Terry, thanks for having me on your show.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure to meet you. You replicated the walk across the part of the continent to get to the whaling station.
That's correct.
So you took exactly or as close as you could to the same path?
Yeah, we went the same path. The terrain had changed, but we followed through the Trident Gap and then over the pass and into Stromness. So it was the same the same trek that Shackleton had gone on.
When you prepared yourself for this, I mean, you're a professional mountaineer. You've done a lot of work. You were you're still in incredible shape for it. But when you put it together and you needed the equipment that you didn't go in Shackleton's old kind of stuff. You went with all the latest gear.
Yeah, we went with modern equipment, and it still took us 2 nights, 3 days to do it.
Well, that's the next question. How do you think that Shackleton pulled it off with the kind of technology he had in those days?
They were determined to get to civilization. They had to rescue the 22 men that were on Elephant Island. They were determined to do that. And overarching is what Shackleton stands for, which is endurance, the name of the ship that they went down with. But how strong humans really are. And we kind of lose touch with that in today's over-mechanized society. And we don't realize that we are really strong. And when you have to do something that's desperate, that strength comes from within.
But look at the food they ate. I mean, my gosh! In some cases, they were literally on the verge of starvation, and they were eating, trying to heat up things that were like low protein soup. They didn't have anything left.
Yeah, but the biggest source of sustenance was penguins and seals.
Right,
and which was good because it had
lots of fat. Yeah,
lots of fat. Fresh meat, which has vitamin C, but it doesn't taste very good.
No.
But when you're hungry, then that's what you'll eat.
But you didn't do that.
No, we had energy bars and sort of modern day food.
Did you, when you camped out, when you were coming across the tundra areas and going through the ice and the snow and so on, when you camped out, did you come up against any of those huge forced winds that they had? Because they had hurricane speed winds when they were on the Endurance and trying to get across the ice floes.
Yeah, we didn't. Those type of katabatic winds on South Georgia, we were lucky we didn't get them while we were there. But the big difference that we had from what they experienced in 1914, 1915, and 1916, those 3 years, is that the glaciers have melted out to a great extent. And even 10 years ago when we were there,
15% apparently the latest number.
Yeah. It is one of the glaciers named after Tom Crean,
the
stalwart Irishman on the trip. It is pretty much crevasse-riddled, and they were able to walk over the top of it, where we had to rappel into it and climb out using modern climbing techniques that really weren't developed until after the Second World War.
So you're looking at all of the pinions, you're looking at all the grapplings, you're doing all the stuff that you had to do in order to get up and down.
Yeah, and at one point where they're at the Trident Gap, and they slid down. They sort of made a toboggan of themselves, elbows and knees latched together, and they slid down. If we had done that, it would have been suicide. There was ice cliffs and seracs, and it was trouble.
What is left of that original whaling station?
Stromness and Grytviken are both there, and they are pretty much preserved in the way they were. When whaling no longer was the source of oil, and we kind of came to our senses. We don't need to be hunting whales. We can get petroleum to do what we need. They pulled it away, and they've done some site remediation so that the caustic stuff is not going to be there, but the original houses and cabins, and it's pretty eerie when you're there, both at Grytviken and Stromness. You walk through these there's 2 or 3 nice houses. There's a church, there's a community center, and then there's sort of the rendering plant for the for the whales. And at one end of it's really sad because you think of these animals, and then the other end of it, it's
that's
sort
the
of
bone field.
the bone. And you see the whale bones there,
yeah.
and then it's you understand it's part of history, and it's something that we've learned from collectively as humans.
Tell me, when you were there, tell me what you saw when it came to wildlife. What did you see in the waters, and what did you see on the shorelines with the penguins and so on?
The Antarctic Peninsula will have more wildlife than, say, the interior. The interior is a desert, and the peninsula, sort of the foundation for that is the krill, and that feeds off the plankton, and so then you move up in the food web from there, and so fish, and then you get to the larger fish, the penguins. There's probably 7 different types of penguins in Antarctica, and then the seals, the crab-eater seals, the ring seals, and then the top alpha seal of them all is the leopard seal.
The leopard seal.
Yeah. So,
I worked with a guy that you may know. Forgive me, I can't recall his name, but he is a titled British explorer. Did the Arctic here, and then did Antarctica, and I interviewed him after he did Antarctica. I think he did a book on it, but he put his leg up on the desk that I was working at when I was working at a radio station in Vancouver, and I said, how was it in Antarctica? And he pulled back his pant leg, and he showed me where a leopard seal had come out of a hole and grabbed him by the leg. Yes,
they were the biggest worry of Shackleton's team was the leopard seal, because they are
highly aggressive.
Yeah, and predators. And when they open up their mouth to yawn, you could probably put a basketball in there.
No kidding. Yeah. Well, listen, Shackleton and his crew were meat.
They were meat.
They're protein hunters.
Yeah, and but they had their rifles, and they were able to get everyone through there. So,
tell me about the film, and tell me about your involvement in it, and why this is such an important film for people to see.
The film is Shackleton's Antarctic journey, and it's playing at the IMAX Theater at the British Columbia Museum there, and it's a great 40-minute education in who Shackleton was and what he was able to do. And humans like to explore. We're incredibly strong, we're ingenious, and that idea of exploration is alive and well. We might not be doing terrestrial exploration and mapping and things like this, but rather it's more the exploration of science and knowledge like that. So it's a great metaphor for exploration. And then what Shackleton went through in 17 months, living on seals and just sort of complete hardship, for me is like this little story I keep close to my heart. So whenever we have one of our 21st century first world problems, like my cell phone call got dropped, or I got ketchup on my shirt or something like that, I'm like, okay, Shackleton lived on an ice floe for 17 months. I'm being light, so step it up.
How many guys on that ice floe by the time they got back?
They left the trip, was 28 men altogether, and so all 28 of them got back. 3 of the members from the New Zealand support party perished down there.
Yes.
But everyone that was under Shackleton's guard made it back safe and sound.
Shackleton gets a lot of the attention as being the major driving force, but he also had some other people with him that were major driving forces for Shackleton himself because they kept him going.
Yes, exactly. So Frank Worsley was the photographer.
Right.
He was documenting it. Tom Crean was the Irishman that was just as solid as anything. So,
and he also pushed Shackleton too.
Yeah. So it was, and Shackleton, when he returned to England after his great adventure, they were in the throes of the Great War.
Yeah.
It was the first war. We hadn't had the second one. So it was a very defining war for both Canada and for England. And so his expedition was overshadowed by that. And at that time, you either made it or you didn't. Coming back with a good story of success as we measure really wasn't part of it.
When we come back after we take this news break, I want you to tell me what shape you think Antarctica is in, and we know about the ozone layer, we know about the holes, we know about global warming and all that sort of thing. I want to find out from you, with your time down there, and whether you've seen this, including your explorations in Nepal and so on, whether we are actually within a process now of the world having a very serious problem with the ice caps, both Antarctica and the Arctic, and also what you've been able to see when you've worked Everest and all the other areas. Can we do that?
Sounds good, Terry.
All right, we'll return in just a few moments with Conrad Anker, mountaineer expedition to the Antarctic, and here to help promote Shackleton's Antarctic adventure at the IMAX Theater down at the Royal BC Museum. Back with you after this.
CFAX 1070.
Conrad Anker, the team captain of the North Face athletic team, has proven to share many of the celebrated leadership characteristics of Sir Ernest Shackleton. How do you like being compared to Shackleton?
Oh, it's humbling.
I guess. He devotes himself to conservation, human activism, and is a driving force of the Kumbh Climbing Center in Nepal. I want to get into that issue because I know, and I also want to talk about George Lee Mallory, because I know that back in '99 you were part of the expedition that led to the recovery of his body. Many people who don't have the kind of thing that ticks inside your head wonder why we still need to climb mountains. Why? What is it about the human character that says we've got to climb those mountains?
I think for some people, we're hardwired for risk. And if we go back into the beginning of humanity, we've always had a few people that would leave the tribe, leave the group, and they would go out on adventures. And the classic example of that is the Odyssey by Homer. And so It's always been a part of what we do. Trying something that's challenging with a small group of people, as mountain climbing is this great opportunity to keep that need for risk and exploration alive. So we're we're out there and we're keeping that need to explore and understand our planet alive.
Part of the problem they're having now in Nepal and in the Everest area, that there are many people who want to climb that mountain, but many people are paying the big bucks. They're going in and they're hiring the Sherpas and doing so on, but some of them are very ill-prepared to do the climb. Now, I don't know what the laws and the regulations are at this particular stage, but you're a professional in this area. What can you tell us about this group of individuals who are anxious to do it but may not be qualified?
There isn't enough regulation by the government of Nepal.
Right.
Basically, if you have the peak fee, which is the permit, it's $10,000, and then you can hire anyone you want to go up there. So if you're going to climb in Parks Canada or up on Denali in Alaska, you have to have some experience before they let you go up there on your own. And for the people that they're like, Everest is it, and they're not climbers in the sense that they've gone through the whole mentorship and learned the ropes and then had this as
Is it becoming like a Disneyland of climbers?
Not a Disneyland, but there's certainly the trophy hunters that are out there. They want that prize to say, yeah, I've climbed Everest, and to be the only one in their community of friends that have.
I went to Tasmania and dove with the great white sharks. That kind of attitude.
Yeah. So
get me in the cage and away I go. And you think and this is not an easy trek.
No. And how many merit badges can you have on your shoulder?
Exactly.
Things like that. So, and it's those people that get in over their head. And then when you get there, all of a sudden you've got this giant mountain, you've got excellent service support, and you're paying quite a bit of money. So you're invested in it, and your ego drives you. And then on summit day, which is very difficult, and that's when the majority of the accidents happen, is on the descent from summit day. They don't have the reserves to get back down safely.
How many times have you been up?
3 times up Everest. So
peak?
Yeah, to the summit. So first one was 99, found George Mallory's body. Second one was 2007, came back and free climbed the second step. That is without using the ladder. That's on the north side. And then
bottles?
2012.
You use your air bottles?
Those first 2 times on the north side, and then this third time I came up from the south side and did it without supplemental oxygen.
Okay, and that's a tough go.
It is. You take one step and then 8 to 10 deep breaths.
100 and in some cases 110 mile and beyond winds.
No,
you didn't do it? Didn't get any of that.
Well, we got bad weather, but summit days I go up and the weather's good, and that's why I'm here. And I've got all my fingers, toes, and the nose
when it's clear.
Yeah, when it's clear, and timing is essential. So someone that goes up and this is my summit day because it feels good, but they don't really have the experience to gauge the weather or the strength and reserves, they're in trouble.
Did you ever hallucinate? No. So you got lucky.
Yeah, I like to control my environment and know where I'm going and how things are. If I was seeing stars up there, then I wouldn't. It's not safe.
About 170 people have been killed on Everest, and there are still bodies into those ice flows, into that snow, and so on. And you recovered Mallory's body back in 1999. Can you talk about the experience?
It was the 1st of May, 99, and it was we set out on the north slope of Mount Everest looking specifically for his body. And to come across someone who was a predecessor to who I am as a climber, was there's a very humbling and a deep amount of respect for who Mallory was. He set the stage then for Hillary and Norgay when they climbed it in '53.
Yeah. When did he die, by the way? When did he?
June 8th, 1924.
24, right.
So, and his body was 75 years later, frozen, desiccated, and well preserved.
And you pulled it out, and also he was buried in...
He was face down, frozen into the slope. We took some of his personal effects, returned them to the family and the Royal Geographic Society.
And the body's still in there?
Body's still there. We performed a committal service at the request of the family and read the 103rd Psalm.
So it's like a burial at sea.
That's exactly the metaphor analogy that we use.
I think it's right.
Yeah. That's where he wants to rest, and that's... to get him down would be a tremendous amount of work, and then it would thaw, and it's just... I had some serious questions about the people who went down and explored the Titanic and were bringing up stuff. There's 1,500 people down there, and they should have left the site alone. Photograph it, do everything they want to do it, but don't bring up the stuff. Yeah.
That's what I thought. That was my personal thinking on it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Antarctica. You spent the time in there. This film is going to be showing down at the IMAX. What, from a physical and geology point of view, did you see in Antarctica that concerns you at this stage?
The information I get from Antarctica is mostly from the news feed and from satellite images. So when you'll see a big part of an ice shelf crack off and then drift off, so just some large island of ice that drifts out into sea. But the more immediate, what I see is in the high mountains, whether you're in the Himalayas or in the northern latitudes, and then the snow line moving up, the glaciers sort of not being as robust as they have been. There's not enough snow coming in there to build up their mass, so all of those really add to it.
You have a concern and a strong belief about global warming?
I do. We look at, we're just about to go over 400 parts per million in CO2 in the atmosphere, and we haven't been at that level for 800,000 years. So there's how we're going to adapt to it is a big question. I think you and I are going to be doing okay. We've got another 40, 50 years of wonderful existence with plenty of carbon, but what is it going to be like for 7 generations down the line? And how do we address a post-carbon society? And it's not going to be us. They're going to be living in that. But we need to be getting in there, putting research into it, and doing our best to mitigate the effects of a changing climate.
Species count diminishing as well in Antarctica like it is in the Arctic?
Yeah. Penguins are not doing very well because that's part of the krill and the phytoplankton that feed the krill.
Yeah.
So depending on... They're affected by temperature.
Emperors as well as royal and so on?
Yes. So
really?
They're just not doing as well. Some of them are adverse effects. It might rain when it should normally snow, and so they're the newborn chicks with their before they molt, their feathers get wet, and then the wind blows in and they freeze in place. So there's a lot that is still being studied, but it's a great indicator of what and how our planet is changing.
What about the seals?
The seals are doing better because they're not being hunted as they were for the fur in the 100 years or so ago. And then because they're if there's not as many penguins eating the krill,
of course.
Yeah, they'll eat the krill, but they also eat the penguins. So, but I'm not an expert on that. So, what
about the whales? Did you have a chance to see the humpbacks and the blues and so on?
Yeah, we saw the down there outside of South Georgia, and their populations are. They're stabilizing. It's mostly because we don't hunt them anymore.
Right.
There's a couple nations that hunt them for, quote, scientific purposes. But
what a joke that is.
Yeah, and it's if you want to, you can. So just let the whales be, and we can get our oil out of petroleum, and so everything that we need to do with them is there. And they are majestic, and we can only fathom how intelligent those animals are.
Shackleton's Antarctic Adventure, opening at the IMAX, 17th. And will play in conjunction with the Race to the End of the Earth exhibition at the Royal BC Museum, May 17th to October 14th of this year. Do not miss out. You want to contact them, go to 250-480-4887 or go to www.imaxvictoria.com. Should be an absolutely sensational show, and we're delighted to have Conrad Anker in the studio to talk about it. And what's your next project?
I'll be going up to Whitehorse here in the Yukon, climbing the Circuit of the Unclimbables. And I live in Montana, and any chance I get to come up to Canada is a it's a beautiful trip. So I'm looking forward to that.
You're in mountain country, going back up to mountain country.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful range, and I've yet to.
What's your target on the mountain? Which one?
It's the Circuit of the Unclimbables, and there's Lotus Flower Tower and Mount Proboscis. So we've got 3 weeks, and hopefully we won't get too much rain, and we'll be able to climb these